Quý vị khán giả vừa theo dõi những thông tin đáng chú ý trong tuần qua và sau đây xin mời quý vị khán giả cùng gặp gỡ bà Caitlin Wilson, Giám đốc Quốc gia Chương trình Phát triển Liên Hợp Quốc tại Việt Nam trong tiểu mục Chuyện Việt Nam.
You've just watched the highlights of the past week. Now we'd like to introduce you to Caitlin Wilson, UNDP Country Director in Vietnam in the Vietnam Stories section.
Bà Caitlin Wilson tốt nghiệp bằng thạc sĩ về chính sách tài chính và năng lượng quốc tế trường Đại học Luật và Ngoại giao Fletcher, Hoa Kỳ. Bà từng đảm nhận trọng trách là Giám đốc quốc gia của UNDP Ấn Độ, Giám đốc trung tâm khu vực của UNDP châu Á, Thái Bình Dương và từng giữ các chức vụ khác nhau của văn phòng UNDP tại châu Á, châu Phi, Bắc Mỹ và châu Âu. Năm 2017, bà trở thành Giám đốc quốc gia chương trình Phát triển Liên Hợp Quốc UNDP tại Việt Nam. Tính đến nay, bà đã có hơn 25 năm kinh nghiệm về phát triển và từng công tác trong các lĩnh vực giảm nghèo, quản trị công, bình đẳng giới, phát triển con người, HIV, y tế và xây dựng quan hệ đối tác chiến lược.
First of all, we would like to say thank you that you save your time for us today. Firstly, can you tell us about the UNDP work in Vietnam?
Thank you so much for that question. UNDP has been honored to have a long, trusted partnership with Vietnam, starting from the 70s, some 40 years ago. We've had a long, fruitful partnership. Currently, our core focus is helping the government of Vietnam and its people advance the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. We do that focusing on three areas of work. First of all is related to inclusive governance and voice of people and participatory engagement. The second area is inclusive growth and poverty reduction and reaching those who are most left behind. And thirdly is looking at climate change and environment and how we can engage in a way that is a sustainable growth path that will benefit all. Across our work, a core focus is on poverty and inequality and reducing these overall and ensuring that growth pathways are sustainable and resilient.
You said that 40 years ago, UNDP and Vietnam partnership started. So how the partnership has developed?
Our partnership goes back 40 years when Vietnam was in the post-war reconstruction phase. And at that time, UNDP was really helping it. There wasn't much of a foreign presence, and UNDP was there to help provide expertise and also help tap and provide resources to help stimulate development. Through the years, UNDP has also been side by side with Vietnam through the Doi Moi reforms, the opening up, the market-oriented economy, and helping bringing market-oriented solutions to development. At the same time, addressing human development and inclusive development and bringing expertise, bringing know-how, and knowledge sharing from other countries. More recently, since 2000, the major partnership was geared towards the integration of Vietnam into the global economy. It was also a major shift for Vietnam to low middle income status. And it was the launch of Vietnam on the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals. Since 2016, UNDP has been standing shoulder to shoulder with the government of Vietnam and its people with the Sustainable Development Goals. And the Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2030 are key, but also looking at how to engage with these issues in the context of how do you maintain growth, what's happening with innovation, what's happening with Industry 4.0, and how can you adapt and ensure that the future will have resilient growth, but growth that also reaches those that are the furthest behind. Growth that is sustainable over time, growth that is inclusive.
In working to find a better balance between economic, social and environment development, so how do you think about Vietnam and Vietnamese people?
And I think in some ways, some of the best solutions to linking those three, which is environment, economic, and social, we can find some of the greatest examples from communities themselves. So I think some of the ethnic minority groups, for example, and with support of UNDP, the government of Vietnam, and also different NGOs, have been looking at ways to create sustainable business that will help lift people out of poverty, but at the same time sustain the environment. The other area for UNDP, we think development is key, and key to development is looking at three things. One, development that is sustainable, one, development that is also risk-informed, and development that is transformative. And I think these are issues that Vietnam is grappling with now and advancing in very productive ways. What do we mean by that? When we say sustainable, it's a development that's going to be durable, that will last over the long run, and it's also development that respects the environment. And I think Vietnam is moving ahead and has made progress in some areas, and in other areas we need more engagement and further development. The second is in risk-informed development. We know that Vietnam is one of the most vulnerable countries in terms of climate change and extreme weather events. The other area that we look at is third areas that it's development that's transformative. So I think in various ways, Vietnam has been engaged in all these three ways.
So three things you have mentioned, it's that the result that we have been achieved over the years.
We've had a long engagement with Vietnam. So we go back to some of the early days in the 40 years, and we launched, for example, a very high-level executive leadership program. And that executive leadership program was attended to and participated by Vietnam's leaders today. Another has been supporting Vietnam in the establishment of the first enterprises law. And since that was introduced, it helped generate over 1 million jobs within 3 years. And these were in the earlier days. We've also had some very important achievements together with Vietnam. It's hard to select. Another important area has been in public sector reform. And here we've been delighted to partner with a range of different partners on something called PAPI. And our PAPI study looks at Public Administration Performance Index. And then finally has been partnering with Vietnam in its reporting processes and international commitments. We have the UPR, Universal Periodic Review with the Human Rights Council, which we've aided with. We've had the Millennium Development Goals, which we've reported on. We have the Paris Agreement that we're working on in partnership, and now the Sustainable Development Goals. And for the first time this year, government of Vietnam will be presenting its very first voluntary national report on the Sustainable Development Goals and progress so far at the high-level political forum in New York in July. So we've been honored to be partnering with these results all the way. And lastly, I would say innovation. And I think innovation is where I think Vietnam is really on the cusp of a breakthrough on innovation. And we think especially looking at the opportunities and challenges, but trying to harness the benefits of innovation, technology, and Industry 4.0 for the Sustainable Development Goals and for the people of Vietnam to ensure that no one is left behind.
So what are the challenges and opportunities for Vietnam to build a better future for its countries and its citizens?
One of the areas which I had started to highlight, and has also been certainly a priority of the Prime Minister, has been the whole way of analyzing how we can look at productivity leaps and growth through Industry 4.0. We know some of the key challenges that are facing Vietnam right now are continued growth and productivity. The other is climate resilient, sustainable growth, and ensuring that the growth is sustainable. The other areas including socially inclusive programs that are actually going to reach those that are furthest behind. And while Vietnam has made extraordinary progress on reducing poverty, there's still the last mile to reach, and there's still pockets of poverty with those among ethnic minorities. So I would commend Vietnam for the number of national programs that have been put in place to address these issues, and we've been proud to partner with Vietnam in that context. As we look forward to the 2030 agenda, which is not that far away, we really also need to be looking at transformative leaps in the way that we're engaging. And this is where engaging with innovation and engaging with Industry 4.0 and looking at ways that we can adapt technology to increase productivity leaps, to increase and solve some of the pressing social development challenges of our day will be absolutely key.
So what are you going to do to help Vietnam overcome the emerged challenge?
So we are working with Vietnam in three ways. The first way I would highlight is youth, and I think youth are extremely important to both current development and future development of Vietnam. And we've been working to help look at an enabling startup ecosystem. A second way in which we're engaging is really helping the government of Vietnam and meet some of their key international agreements, the Paris Agreement, the Sustainable Development Goals Agreement, and I think these are areas where we're going to continue to provide policy advice and also critically crowd in the private sector. I think there's an understanding that in order to achieve the SDGs, we're not going to be able to do it with government alone, with civil society alone, and youth alone. We also need to very innovatively engage with the business sector. And so I think finding creative ways to tap in and crowd in the private sector will be absolutely key, and we're engaged in that process right now. Looking at what that would look like for small, medium enterprises, also what that might look like for businesses, and also tapping vertical funds that can help in stimulating this environment in Vietnam.
How long have you been in Vietnam?
So I've been in Vietnam now for just 8 months. So it's 8 months, almost going on 9 months. And it's been an extraordinary period. Before coming to Vietnam, I worked in Thailand in a regional office, heading our policy and program work for Asia Pacific. So I visited Vietnam many times, but living here is very different. And it's a delight and an honor to be here. It's an extraordinary country at an extraordinary time, and I can't think of a better time to be here as country director.
Do you find it difficult when you're living in Vietnam?
No, I don't find it difficult. On the contrary, I find living in Vietnam to be a wonderful experience. I think the people, the culture, the food, the ambiance is really fantastic. And what stands out is the commitment at all levels. People in government, people in civil society, people in communities. I think that kind of commitment makes it really a wonderful space to work to try to be solving some of the pressing development challenges that Vietnam is facing at this time.
Do you like Vietnamese food?
Oh, it's my weakness. I love Vietnamese food, and I think I would be hard-pressed if you asked me to say which food I like the best. If I had to choose, if you made me, I would probably pick chocolat vong. But it's
Chocolat vong.
Yeah, yes, but delicious, and I think it's now recognized globally, and it's actually a destination for food to many travelers. Vietnam is being discovered in that way.
So do you have any remarkable story that you want to share with our audience?
I think one of the areas that really moved me was the experience of Storm Damri. And it was soon after in Vietnam, and the storm was virulent, and it impacted so many people. It was devastating. And I was very impressed by the way Vietnam and the people mobilized to respond. And at a stage, there was an invitation to the international community and the UN and UNDP to join. So UNDP joined the response, looking at how we could help in restoring houses. And as vulnerable houses, one of the first things you need to do if you repair houses to enable people to go back in and live, and to be able to restore their life to normal, and to go back to having their children go to school, to having their daily life. And I think one of the ways that we were really impressed, we worked together very closely with the Vietnam Red Cross and also the Vietnam Women's Union and the Vietnam Disaster Management Authority. But what impressed me so much were the people themselves. And the people themselves, even under such duress, and their engagement in rebuilding their own homes was a very powerful moment for me, and very moving to see that engagement despite such great strife. The determination, the resilience, and the willpower to build back and to build back better. It was really an honor and privilege.
Thank you for your sharing. Well, today we also have the participation of many students from many universities in Hanoi, and certainly now they might have some questions for you. Are you ready?
Sure. Thank you.
Is there any questions for our guest today? Please raise your hand. You please.
I'm Vita. I'm come from National Economic University. I want to ask you a question. What do Vietnamese students need to do to contribute to sustainable development in Vietnam?
Thank you so much for that question. It's a great question. And university students are helping in so many ways. They're looking at different, some of them are studying different ways and innovations to be able to help people come up with more sustainable livelihoods. So, for example, in one of our competitions that we had, there was a group in a local community, students in a local community, and they came up with a very ingenious way of creating a windmill. And the windmill, it's just some bowls that were put together in a creative sense that provided enough electricity and wind power to actually power a whole household with light and electricity. So, in other words, use your innovation, use your creativity, and use your learning to help solve some of the challenges in the country for sustainable development. So that's one way to do. Another is to express your voice. What are your aspirations for these sustainable development goals? What would you like to see for the future? And contribute to, the government has a national development SDG report every year. Contribute to that. That's another way to engage. And then a third way is also by looking at how you can volunteer. What is it that you can do within your communities to make a difference? And then finally, I would encourage looking at startup businesses and looking at businesses and how you can bring your creativity to solving some of the environmental and social challenges being faced. If I may say, with UNDP, we have Youth Collab. We invite all youth to come and to compete. And there are SDG Challenge Awards, and there are also regional competitions you can engage in.
Thanks. Next question, please.
My name is Hai. I'm a student at the National Economic University. I have an ask question for you. You are talking about building and sharing solutions. What can we as students do to contribute to the effort?
I think one of the things that we're realizing is that in development, we can't keep doing the same things again and again and expect different results. If we want transformative results, we need to be thinking out of the box. We need to be thinking creatively. And sometimes the youth do this naturally. They're thinking out of the box. And this is very important to bring those creative energies and ideas and thinking to test out new ways and approaches to old problems that we're still trying to solve. Some of the problems of poverty, which are still here. So what are the difficult remaining challenges and what new ingenuity can be brought to bear and tested out? And then the other is also intellectually, to test out new ideas and learn from other cultures and learn from other countries and see what might be applied here that might be interesting to adapt.
Thank you for your sharing, and once again, thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor and privilege.